Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of Epic Fantasy Romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Ah, delicious. Today is Monday, February 10th, and I heard from some of you that you can hear the noise of the casita building in the background. Hopefully, it's not too distracting. I swear there are like 20 guys out there, and it's all guys. It's interesting. It is all guys, unless my girl boss contractor is here. It's all guys, and they are just working away, swarming over that thing. It's looking great. It's fantastic. um, they did work on Saturday, although they knocked off at about 3 o'clock, and then there was nothing all day Sunday. And it was so peaceful. It was so nice. I play with this in my books sometimes. We, where you become accustomed to things. Like the frog in the boiling water analogy is a little bit tired. To the point of being cliche, but it's a good one, and it's actually physiologically true that if you put a frog in cool water and gradually heat it, and it until it boils. It's not entirely accurate. It's supposed to be that like if you throw a frog in boiling water, it'll immediately leap out, and if instead you gradually increase it, it'll boil and kill it. But it's because the heat will kill it before that. That's why it doesn't leap out by the time you're boiling. Not that I've experimented on this. I haven't. I just know physiology, and we used frogs a lot in physiology lab. Anyway, total aside there. Um, so but one thing I like to play with in my books is, like not being aware of how much pain you're in until the pain goes away. That it's that feeling of surcease, because you do become accustomed to things. And I'm used to the noise now. At least it's not so distracting as it was. But boy, when it stopped Saturday afternoon, it was like the angels sang and the sun broke through the clouds, and they didn't work at all on Sunday, and so it was just really nice. And hearing him get started this morning, it was like, okay, here we go. I mean, good thing it's like still mostly winter, although I did get some spring things out. I can't imagine if we had to have the windows open, because we really don't run the AC much. Maybe we would have them closed and run the AC if it was warm weather. So anyway, once they left on Saturday, we went out there and we were able to take some photos, and it was beautiful afternoon. So it was really nice being out on that portal, in nice weather. It's going to be incredible. It's just going to be gorgeous. Um, yeah, I'm really excited. It's neat to see it coming together. We did take photos. I will share those eventually. Although today I really need to share some graphics on the Vow for Girls stuff. Um, to stop child marriage, which is a huge problem worldwide. So I will be sharing those. We'll be doing a giveaway this week for the Chronicles of Desnaria trilogy, signed in print. Um, and or you can just donate. There'll be plenty of opportunities to donate. And please only donate if you feel like you can. I always feel this way too, like when they say, even $5 makes a difference. And I'm sure it does. But for people who are thinking about whether or not to donate $5, these things are not aimed at you. If you would rather spend your $5 on the latte that is like the thing that gives you joy, then please do that. Don't worry about this. As I have progressed in life, I've become much more aware of um, fundraising and how this kind of thing works. And I have a friend who does a lot of fundraising. I have several friends who are very well off and donate lots of money to things. And my friend who does fundraising, like she'll go to lunch with a potential donor and talk about her program, and they'll say, "Oh, that sounds great," and they'll write a check for $10,000. These are the people that fundraising is aimed at, not at you, um, clutching your $5 and contemplating whether to give up your uh, latte that is your one bright spot of joy. Please don't worry about that. Leave it to the people who can write a check for $10,000 over lunch. Uh, have your latte. Hopefully, it's not your only spot of joy, but take your joy where you can. And if a latte gives you joy, spend your $5 on that, or your $7 or whatever they're costing. Uh, it often makes me think of, like every once in a while, someone on the internet will say, like, what's an obscure quote from a movie that only you will recognize? And we all have a raft of those. But I think about the movie Home for the Holidays from the mid 90s with Holly Hunter and Robert Downey Jr. Um, Dylan McDermott, I think, is in it. And yes, Steve Guttenberg, Claire Danes. I mean, it's really a great cast. And I just love that movie. It's a great Thanksgiving movie. I didn't watch it this year, and I probably should have. Uh, but Cynthia Stevenson plays Joanne, the incredibly uptight sister who is, you know, constantly trying to lose weight. And there's a point at which Holly Hunter goes over to her sister's house after the debacle of a Thanksgiving dinner to talk to her, partly to apologize. And Joanne is on her Stairmaster, and she doesn't want to talk to her sister, doesn't want to talk to Holly. And finally, she says, could you please leave? Because being on the Stairmaster is the only thing that gives me joy these days. And it's such a great line, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's just like, wow, this woman who is obsessed with weight loss and obsessed with exercising, and she's already rail thin, and like being on the Stairmaster is the one thing that gives her joy. So hopefully you have more joy than your $5 latte, but regardless, please enjoy that. Other things, we did watch the Super Bowl yesterday. Poor Chiefs, just could not. I, I'm not a football person. I'm not a sports things person. Uh, David wanted to watch it. I sat there and signed tip-in sheets. I'm officially 25% through my tip-in sheets for the Owl Crate books. Woo. Um, and I've still got 5 weeks to finish. However, they're sending me 3,000 more. Melt emoji. So I probably need to go a little bit faster than I have been going. I haven't been doing them every day. I've been shooting for doing 2 inches a day, and I haven't. But I feel like I'm going at a pretty good rate. Of course, I set up a calculation for this. I've got my formula, and I have to do 1.4 inches every day to finish in time. And I'm trying to remember if that includes the extra 3,000. I think it does, actually. Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. So that's to finish the ones I've got. So I'm going pretty fast. I mean, it's getting pretty automatic that I can sit there watching a movie or the Super Bowl and just sign those. Um, I had a great word count day on Friday. Oh, the one thing I was going to say about Super Bowl is in honor of Taylor, I am drinking out of my Swiftie mug this morning. I don't know what the deal was on them, like supposedly booing her on the Jumbotron. Um, Trump was there. Trump hates Taylor Swift. They're trying to make it into a thing that people cheered for Trump and booed Taylor Swift, and I don't know, it just smacks of the usual truth twisting that gang of criminals regularly engages in. So, but anyway, because I am a true Swiftie, I'm faithful forever, right? But it wasn't a very good game. The Chiefs just couldn't get it together. It seemed like. So at least it wasn't a shutout. Is that what they call it? Right? At least it wasn't to zero. They still got 22 points. I thought they might do the second half rally like they did last year, and no. So alas for that. So yeah, I thought I was not going to have a good day on Friday, and then I rallied, and it ended up being my best word count day of the week. Go figure. And interestingly, I got 2,222 words, uh, which tells you that it wasn't a great week. That was as many as I got, but it was still a decent week. I got almost 8,000 words for the week. So I am still on track to get Strange Familiar drafted in time so that I can complete my revision on A Rose in the Mirror. Uh, I probably won't be ahead of schedule, but you never know. I also did some work yesterday morning, actually almost 3,000 words, amazingly enough. Something like, let's look and see, like 2,700 words. Yeah, a little over 2,700 words on this nonfiction project I'm working on. That's kind of like a memoirish kind of thing, which is super secret. I guess I probably shouldn't talk about it at all. If I don't know that I'll ever publish it. I am not a journaler because to me, journaling is the same energy that goes into writing, and I don't want to spend it on journaling. And I feel like I am a believer that the unexamined life is not worth living. Uh, but I am an introspective person, and I feel like I'm pretty in touch with how I feel about things and talking to people and so forth. But this is something where I wanted to talk about like what this time in my life is. And if I ever publish it, which I may not, um, it'll probably be under a deep pseudonym. So, uh, yeah, I probably shouldn't have mentioned it at all. But I was interested that I wrote so many words on it yesterday about something that I was thinking about, and I enjoyed putting it down. So I'm interested to see if that helps with the word flow this week, or if that like came out of the same well. It was kind of fun to write a nonfiction thing too. Some of you may know that I started out as an essayist. And so, which is a handy skill to have. My first book was an essay collection, Wyoming Trucks, True Love, and the Weather Channel. Um, and a lot of my early career was publishing essays in magazines back when you could get paid to do that. But it comes in handy now because, like, when I was having the meeting with the tour publicity and marketing team, it's really marketing and publicity. They do M&P. They asked me if I had questions, and I kind of wanted to ask what's the difference between marketing and publicity, but I didn't. I felt like, I don't know. I'm usually a fan of there are no stupid questions, but I felt like with all of these very bright, enthusiastic, lovely people who had introduced themselves to me and their jobs and what they were going to be doing to promote my book and all of this, that I didn't feel like I could ask that question. Marketing and publicity. Yeah. Anyway, when we had the meeting with them, they were asking about different things that they could do. Could they hit me up to do podcasts? And I was like, why, yes. I think I'm actually a pretty good podcast guest. I said something along the lines of always happy to shoot off my mouth, which, is true. And so I have to pause here a moment because I can see from my window. Normally, I can't see a whole lot of what they're doing because there's a tree in the way, but they're putting up one of the posts for the portal that's near, and they're being very careful to. It's been great. They've been great about preserving stuff on the landscape that they can. And we have this juniper tree that's kind of in the corner between our house and the casita, and they guess it's over 100 years old. And so they've had to trim it back some, but they've been so careful about how much of it they trim off that, yeah, it's just kind of cool to see them working around it. Uh, these guys are just such craftsmen and so careful. It sort of belies a lot of the tropes, the stereotypes, right? So sorry, it's kind of fascinating to see what they're trying to do here. Okay, anyway, I was saying something important about, oh yes, one thing that they asked me was if I could write articles, like blog posts, or articles for various sites, and they asked me to give a list of article ideas, things that I could talk about. And I said, yeah, that was something I could do. And I mentioned that I had started out as an essayist. And it's a great skill. A lot of fiction writers. Okay, I'm just going to pause to watch this. Okay, they were just having to navigate this very long beam around the 100-year-old juniper. Uh, and there are currently 4 guys working on this particular piece. Okay, no more getting distracted. Anyway, I was saying that a lot of writers, a lot of novelists, and other writers of fiction start out in journalism because journalism is a paying job in writing, right? But in journalism, you learn to write to deadline. You learn to write concisely. You learn to write to the reader. So they're useful skills to have for those of you who listen to this podcast and are looking for, um, advice, just general ideas how to go about being a writer. Uh, People often ask what are good ways to learn craft, and they're often looking for classes, right? Specific person to teach them craft, which I'm often at a loss. I don't know a lot of people really teaching craft in useful ways, ways that help your process, I think, rather than being prescriptive, saying you must do things this way. That's why, and longtime listeners will know, like I'm always complaining about the, plotting for pantsers, that they're always wanting to do this kind of thing because teaching people to outline a story, teaching people to pre-plot is a teachable thing. Whereas teaching how to follow your intuition and listen to the voices from beyond that's harder to teach. I'm trying, and I might try to do more, but one way to learn craft is to do something like blogging, like writing articles, journalism, because learning to write to deadline is a tremendous skill, says she who's behind on her deadline, but never mind there. I generally can do it. I'm better than many. um, but also learning how to write concisely, learning things like word choice. I'm amazed at how many books I read, and yes, that's really the self-published books. I know that there's always someone who will leap out and say, well, I found a mistake in a traditionally published book. And it's like, yeah, I find them too every once in a while. But sometimes self-published books, there are a lot of them. And one of the big mistakes I see, because it doesn't get caught by the tools, right, it is word choice. It's the wrong word. And sometimes it's like not even an inadequate word, it's flat wrong. And yes, there is such a thing as the wrong word. So, on that note, I'm going to get busy. Please check out Vow for Girls. I'll be talking about it on social media this week. And it's kind of in honor of Galentine's and Valentine's too. So, on that note, I am going to get to work, and I will talk to you all on Friday. Pride Hate. You all take care. Bye bye.